Hey everybody, I am super excited to have you on the Successfully Unemployed show. And I have a friend of mine, a great creative person, as well as a successfully unemployed business owner as well. He owns the website creativepreneur.com, as well as he is a very, very fantastic designer. In fact, the logo that you see for Successfully Unemployed, we worked on designing it. He's the one that got it to me. And Sagi Shrieber, a friend of mine. Thank you. Sagi Shrieber, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Dude, I'm pumped to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Man, so I want to jump right into it. How do you make money to provide for your family?
Yeah, so I have a lot going on. And I guess like a lot of people that are, kind of like unemployed would say that, right? So us entrepreneurs, I have like a few online communities. I have Israel's largest design blog. So I'm from Israel, by the way, and I have Israel's largest design blog, which I had since 2011, but I only started monetizing it really like 2 years ago by launching multiple online courses. So I started with a physical course, which I run in Tel Aviv, about UI UX design, like user experience design. So it's my background, it's what I come from, and then I started making online courses about it, and took it from there and created multiple online programs, along with bringing on other people from the community to launch programs. And it's kind of like now a hub of design courses, and a lot of free content as well, and a weekly newsletter and all that stuff. And so that's one revenue stream I have, or like multiple revenue streams coming from that community. The other community is Creativepreneur, and Creativepreneur is my international community. And over there, I just finished recently. I finished a mastermind, which I ran there for a year, and I'm now soon launching another mastermind. So I have a mastermind of creativepreneurs, and I help them build their businesses. And this next mastermind is I even brought on my mentor, Kelvin Wayman, and we're doing it together. So it's kind of like a partnership. And besides that, I have another online course. I basically translated my best-selling online course from Israel to English, and it's called Design Triggers, and it's about the psychological tactics, or psychology-based tactics that Silicon Valley designers use in order to create engagement and create brand awareness and conversions, obviously. And then I have, across those two communities, I have private coaching clients. And besides that, I also have a studio. So my studio operation is clients from everything from startups in the user experience field, because I come from user experience and in the startup world here in Israel. I was the first designer at Fiverr.com. Then I had startups on my own, and then one acquired my company, which is called SimilarWeb. And then SimilarWeb, I was their design director. So I come from the startup world, and I have a lot of startups in my ecosystem that turn to me for creating their user experience. And some startups, when they begin just their journey, they want to create the MVP, the first, initial product. So they come to me, and I run what's called a design sprint with them, which is basically kind of like a workshop. And I bring in a team, and then we build their app. And so that's on one front, it's that operation. On the other front is web design, just web design for entrepreneurs, mostly for entrepreneurs. So I create websites based on WordPress and Elementor, which is my favorite kind of like website builder. And therefore, on both of those kind of like platforms of the studio, I have different teams working. So I think that's pretty much it.
You have so many different streams of income coming in, which is fantastic, because if one of those gets cut off for whatever reason, you still have many coming in. And now a lot of people that they think of, well, I have to have one really big business in order to quit my job, or lots of investments. But no, there's so many different ways to be successfully unemployed, and you've found many, and you're able to branch out and handle all these at one time. Now, you didn't start this way. I know you were basically down on your luck. You even hired somebody to fly from America. Calvin Williams, we know him. He flew to coach you and to you paid anyways. Tell us a little about the story. I mean, take a few minutes to tell us about that story, because you were dead broke and everything was going bad, and then you hired a coach, didn't have any money, and then all of a sudden now you're where you are now. So tell us about that.
Yeah, and yeah, it was a crazy ride. I mean, so like I said, I come from the design world, the startup world, and I was a designer at many startups. I also worked with eBay, and I was the first design hire at Fiverr, the company, not the marketplace, but actually the company, working on this product with millions of users. And after that, I had my own startups and been in Silicon Valley, coming back. So and then got acqui-hired by SimilarWeb and became design director at SimilarWeb. And throughout all that time, you can say like it's pretty successful. It's a pretty successful career as a designer. And throughout that time, I was also blogging. So I had Pixel Perfect, which is my Israeli blog. It's just for Israeli designers because it's in Hebrew. And then when we got acqui-hired by SimilarWeb, I launched another international design blog called Hacking UI. And Hacking UI became pretty popular. And I also had a podcast where I interviewed directors of designs and VPs of design from Airbnb, Uber, Facebook, Google, Etsy, like all those companies, like big companies that I appreciate. And I learned a lot from them, and that podcast became pretty popular, and Hacking UI became popular, and we managed to monetize it as another side project. I had a partner on that one. And 2.5 years later, it made us enough money that we said, hey, why not just leave our day jobs and do that full time? And hopefully we'll make enough money for both of us. And at that time, I already had 2 kids and a mortgage. And my wife was not working at the time. But I still made that decision and took the risk and left my day job, as a design director in a very successful startup. And I remember just, walking out that big building, corporate building, just like taking in like the big, just like breathing in the hot Tel Aviv polluted air. But I was feeling freedom. Like I was feeling like I was breathing like pure freedom, like started working at coffee shops. And at the beginning, the first few months were great, but then we started having problem to monetize. And when you have problem monetizing, when you're the only provider in your household with 2 kids and mortgage, that sucks. And I didn't have any clients back then. I was working on the blog full time, and Pixel Perfect was still not making money. And I was thinking like Hacking UI is my startup, and I have a partner, and I've left my day job to do just that. So I need to really go all in on that. And if I don't, go all in on this one thing, then I'm a bad partner. I'm not a real entrepreneur. Real entrepreneurs go all in on, their endeavors. And I said, I'll just do that. And so I took a private loan, which I wasted in just a couple months. And I just became very heavily in debt. And at one point, after 6 months of not even being able to pull a dime from my own company, I was at a very bad spot. And I remember just like, I took the dog out for a walk one day, just like walked him, and I'm trying like equations of how I can maybe solve this money problems going through my mind. But I'm 2 weeks away from the credit cards. Here in Israel, we don't have credit cards. We have debit cards. Everything just goes off your bank account. And my bank account was already in the red. And I knew all the payments for my kids' daycares and everything were going to come down. And so I had no way of cracking how I'm going to get money. So at that point, I was just like, couldn't figure it out. I remember just looking at the stars and seeing the beautiful sky, but I'm feeling just trapped, and I just like broke down and cried. And that was a moment where, where you get to a moment where you're crying as an adult, you really ask yourself some questions. I'm like, okay, well, that's great, Sagi. You're crying. You're like, don't know how to get out of the situation, but what if? So what am I going to do about it? That's what I kind of like ask myself. But very kind of like, am I going to let things stop me from building a business, being, building the lifestyle that I want, being free to be with my kids? And at that time, I was nowhere close to that. I was just working too hard. So I wasn't seeing my kids enough. I wasn't seeing my wife. I was not making money, I was just like a failure. I felt like a failure, but I'm saying, great. So what am I going to do about it? Because I know some other entrepreneurs had the same problem. So I reached out to a couple of entrepreneurs I knew. One is Jason Zook, who I greatly admire. And he said, you know what, like it's time for you, Sagi, to do you. You need to do you. So morning after that, I went and told my partner, I'm taking up. That's it. Like, I'm not going to stay in. I'm jumping out the boat. And I need to start clean. And then the other person I talked to was an entrepreneur called Calvin Wayman, who I read his book, Fish Out of Water, which is an amazing book for entrepreneurs, by the way, if anybody wants to read it. Like, it's one of the best books like out there. And I don't know how come it's not as popular as like those, bestseller books. It is a bestseller, but it's like not one of the most popular ones, but it's a great book. So I read it and I reached out to him because he had a similar story. He was an entrepreneur, couldn't make it. So like he just got into debt, and he hired a coach. It's like he joined a mastermind basically, but like he paid like $20K, which he didn't have. And that coach in the mastermind, he helped him like create a business and started crushing it. And I reached out to him and he said, you know what, I can coach you. And I had already a situation where I actually talked to him a few months back. And I said, no, I don't want to be coached by you because, well, I said no, although the gut feeling said it's totally right to do so. But everybody around me told me, are you crazy? Are you going to hire someone with thousands of dollars, which you probably don't have, and fly him out from the US? And like, what does this person know even about life in Israel and about businesses in Israel and tax and everything, how it works here? And is he even a certified coach? And, logic told me, Sagi, don't do this. And so this time around, this is the second time I reached out to Calvin, and he told me, dude, I can coach you. And I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. Like, I don't care. I have nothing to lose. And if I lose another couple $1,000s, it's not going to really defer me from the situation of the dozens of thousands of dollars in debt. And I just said, this is the only thing that I feel can really help me right now. That was my gut feeling. And I flew him out. Another thing that, by the way, that guided me in this call, and maybe it can help anybody listening, is I'd rather live a life of oh wells than what ifs. And I think that if you live by that and you are so much more open-minded to just trying things that you feel in your gut feeling are going to help you, but logically just don't make sense. And all those things, counterintuitive things that you feel are just stupid to do, sometimes they are the best things to do. But you just got to say, I'd rather live a life of oh wells than what ifs, and be willing to take the oh well for that one, but never go back years later and say what if. And so I flew him over and he helped me build a vision. And with that vision, I remember writing 3 things down. I wrote, one is I need to make money. So I put down a goal of making, back then was like $14K a month. And back then I was totally broke, not even making like $0K. And like $14K is something I never made before in my life, even as a freelance in 1 month. So I was like, why not? If I make $14K as an independent, even if I get clients, I don't care. Like 14K is my goal. Like, so $14K a month, but that was like a 6-month vision. So I wouldn't mind making that only 6 months from now. So that was my 6-month vision. So first of all was this, it was like making that 14K. Second thing was, if I actually make 14K, that means I actually made it. So I'm going to open a community where I teach other creative entrepreneurs this time, not designers, but open to all entrepreneurs, how to crush it, how to build their own vision, how to actually succeed and get out of the situation. And the third thing was, I want to be in a podcast to be interviewed by either Pat Flynn or John Lee Dumas. I wrote down. What happened was 1 month after that, I actually made 14K. I actually made like 15K. I was like, oh my God, this, what's going on? Like, I never made that in my life. How come I'm making that now? But it just, things clicked, and I started working with the vision, started working, I started crushing it. I got a client. I was managing, because I was very laser focused on my planning. Then I was managing, like, I knew how much to ask for, and I knew exactly what to do. And I was committed. It's commitment when you have that vision. So after 1 month, when I made that 15K, I said, what if I can make I made 14K was my goal. What if I can make 28K, which is the equivalent to 100,000 Israeli shekels. So that's why 28K, I wrote in shekels, 100,000 Israeli shekels. So I remember Jim Carrey, I don't know, do you know the Jim Carrey story? So we wrote a check when he came to Hollywood. He was just dead broke, but he wrote a check for $10 million. And he just put it in his wallet and carried it around. And every day he used to go to the Hollywood Hills and kind of look over the hills and meditate, just visualize that he's a star and everybody wants to work with him. And that was for 10 years. He wrote that check for at 84, he came to Hollywood and he wrote that check for 94. And at 1994, he actually finished his part in Ace Ventura and signed for Dumb and Dumber. And he made $10 million the same year for that check. And so I was like, oh my God, what if I just I don't know, what the heck, I'll try it. I wrote a check for myself for 100,000 Israeli shekels. And 100,000 Israeli shekels, just put it in the fridge, stuck that check in the fridge in my house and just let it sit there. And 2nd of January 2000, and it was 2nd of January 2018, just 6 months later, my wife called me and I wrote it for the 1st of the 1st, 2018. 2nd of the 1st, 2018, my wife was calling me, she's going over the accounting software and she's like, Sagi, I think we have a problem here. There's a bug probably in the system. It looks like you made just about 29K. I'm in December, I'm like, holy shit. So I grab the check and I just grab the check from the fridge. I run over to the computer. I place the check by the fridge and by the computer screen. And I'm like, oh my God. So I took a picture of that. And I think I should frame that picture, but it's check how much I made. Amazing. So when I hit that goal, a month later, I launched my community, Creativepreneur. Back then I called it back then Mindful and Ruthless. That's because I think, it's kind of about being mindful about your presence and what you want to do in life and being committed. But also ruthless is also being committed. We have to be ruthless and not to listen to anybody, but just be ruthless with our gut feeling. And that's why I call the community right now. It's Creativepreneur because it's kind of more focused towards the people in it. But, and so I launched the community and a month later, it was crazy. And I don't think we have time to go into the story, but anyways, a month later I was booked to be on Pat Flynn's podcast, which is pretty crazy.
So you're visualizing and you're seeing where you want to go, and obviously bringing Calvin, helping you get in that visualization. You visualized all that stuff. You said, where do I want to be? And you actually did it. You did it. Now, walk us through the process of how you made that first 14K or that 28K. If somebody says, you know what, I'm pretty creative too. I can draw or I can use a computer to design things, whatever it might be. How would they go about doing something like that to where they can say, you know what, I have 14 or 18K where now I don't need to have a job anymore and I can do what Sagi did. So what would be some steps that somebody could take to do the same thing you did?
Let's get a few things straight for anybody listening and having a day job. The thing that I hear the most is, how do you do it? I don't have time. And first of all, the first thing that I think that we all have time. We all have 24 hours in a day. And the reason right now you don't have time is just because you don't care enough about something. So, and then people tell me, but Sagi, if I work too hard, I might get burned out. So this is the second thing I get. And I'm like, well, let me tell you something and let me break everything you've been taught in school and by your family. You don't get burnt out by working too hard. That's the complete opposite of what's going on. If you look at all the successful entrepreneurs out there working their asses off, they don't get burned out, right? You get burned out by not doing what you're supposed to do in life. That's how people get burned out, by going to a day job that you don't like or by not fulfilling yourself in life. You get burned out by not fulfilling yourself. So when you wake up in the morning, every day, you should ask yourself, how am I going to fulfill myself in this world? What am I meant to be doing? And you should just do that. And if you have a day job right now and you have the financial responsibilities, great, no problem. I'm not telling you leave your day job immediately, right? Like that would be a crazy risk. By the way, I am a crazy risk taker, and I am about like people taking more risks. Usually people who have a day job don't take enough risks in their lives. So like, take a risk, start a side project, start a side project. And when you start a side project, start it around what you love to do. Just find your passion. What do you love to do? Are you very fascinated about a specific kind of mushroom that grows in the Shandong province of China? Like if you are, then great. Open a blog about it, like go for your passions. And I can guarantee there will be an amazing community around that. Whatever your niche is, whatever your weird things that you think are weird about you are, just, people are just dying to have more content around that. So just start writing about it, start a blog or start a podcast and start interviewing people about that.
I think it's fantastic. And I think that everything that anybody has a passion for right now, technology has made it so easy to become successful and unemployed. Because if you did create a blog, like I've interviewed, and Cassidy Tuttle, she has a succulents website that she literally, I was like, that's a tiny little plant. How do you make money? But she makes a lot of money. And so you can with niches, or it's not a niche site, but it's because it's your site, it's your passion, it could be a hobby, but other people would have that too. And there are ways to monetize that. Now, what was it was it the consulting? Was it the servicing, creating new design? How did you get that first 14,000K?
Yeah. So I just want to tie it back. Once I could just go one step back. Some people might be in their day job and they're like, well, Sagi, I love my day job. Right. And I don't, I don't have my day job. I love my day job. I love what I do. Great. So start your blog around that. Become the best in the field of what you do and become professional. So later you can be a consultant. So that's even better than, like, if you have a niche, great. But just make sure, if you love what you do what you do. That's niche enough. So like if you're an IT consultant, or IT professional, just start an IT blog, or like think about a specific field of IT that you want to start a blog at. And once you leave, you'll have already clients. Like you'll be ready to go to serve clients as a consultant. And the first money that I got back then was from consulting, because I already had a successful career. And I was like overqualified for like the thing that before working with Calvin was, I think I was just like, on one hand, I was very committed to like finding a client. Like when Calvin came, he's like, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, I need money, but I don't want to become, again, like a consultant just serving clients. It's not what I set out to do. It's not what I left my day job to do. And he's like, well, great, but isn't part of your vision making the money that you need somehow? So that's your commitment. You're committed to doing that. What's the best way you can do that right now? Just start. I'm like, well, getting clients. So they said, great, that's your responsibility. That's your obligation. You should be proud of that and go do it. And I'm like, right, you're right. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll go get a client. So I went and committed to myself to like finding a client. And it's kind of like when you're committed to doing something, the universe opens up. It's just kind of like, I believe in the law of attraction. I know a lot of people don't. I know that it's not really an actual law, but it's just like, you can call it karma, you can call it law of attraction, you can call it just like, I just don't believe in luck. I really don't. I believe that there's actually a scientific proof to it. Like whatever you think about, like when we think about a new car or something that we want to buy, we start seeing the car model everywhere, right? I had it when I wanted to buy a stroller for my first kid. Like she was born, and I was like, I as soon as I got fixed on some kind of like stroller, all of a sudden I can't stop seeing that stroller on the streets everywhere. Like, so it happens because when we think of an idea, our brains form neural connections around that idea. And then when we think about it more, it's kind of like the neural connections just spread. Neural connections spread, and then therefore our subconscious mind just looks for opportunities in places that our conscious mind just doesn't. And therefore we identify things, not even wanting to identify things. And it goes way farther than that. It goes into creepy stuff sometimes. Like telepathy, right? Like I know we all had that thing where we're thinking about a person and then they call us. Hey, was that coincidence? Hell no, it happens to everybody in the world. We're humans and it happens to every single human. How do you explain that? That's that's something, neural networks, but it's also something like a more mystic than that. And when you do it in entrepreneurship, when you wish for something and you're closed in on something, then it's just best to think the universe just wants to give it to you if you just do the right thing and you're focused on that. So I was focused on making that money and finding the consulting companies, the consultation clients that I wanted, and I just found them. And one thing led to another, and here I am, like making $15K a month. And before that, I did try to find, but I was overqualified for people for consultancy because in my level they wanted them in-house as design managers or directors. Or I was talking to some companies that work with junior designers, and therefore, like, they didn't want to pay me what I want. But as soon as I started opening up to that, it was just like boom. Like, I was committed. I was making phone calls to people. I was texting people around, and here we go. 2 clients came that wanted to work with me for some that I never ever worked with on before.
That's awesome. Now, it seems like necessity is the mother of invention, and on top of that, it was a necessity for you to pay your bills. And working with Calvin was a great way to say, get started. Like, you need, like, your number one thing that you need to do was to make money, which is absolutely right, to take care of your family. Now, going from there to where you actually now, I wouldn't say feel comfortable, because as entrepreneurs, we're constantly growing. Like, I have so many businesses, but I don't get burnt out. Like you were saying, I don't get burnt out because I love doing this stuff. And it's just, if I wasn't doing it over here, I'd be doing it for something else. Like, that's just in me. I just do these things. So I completely agree. Now, talk about the idea of when you started feeling like, hey, I actually have a solid business, and what you did to scale it. And I understand, remember, we talked about you have your membership sites and you have multiple streams of income. At what point was it that you started feeling like, man, I feel like I am now successful, where I'm not having to, be scrambling and scrambling? Talk to us about that.
Well, I gotta say something. I mean, like, I know that you come from really being financially independent because you have real estate investments and in place, and you get money if you work or not. Like, you get your money straight into your bank account. I don't. I mean, I still don't. I still have to provide for my family and provide on a very high level. Like, because I live in Israel, Israel's life is very not cheap, like not cheap at all. Like, it's very expensive here. And so I have to bring in a lot of income on a monthly basis. So I do have that pressure. I just want to put it straight. I'm not financially independent. I want to be totally clear on that. So, and I don't have so much monthly recurring revenue coming in my business. I work on launching courses. I work on launches. So I'm not saying the pressure is off. The pressure is always on. But I think it's about how you treat the pressure. In the past 2 years, I reprogrammed my brain. That's why I think coaching is so important. I restructured my neural networks in my brain to understand that the struggle, the pressure, it's not about it going away. It's not going away, especially if you're an entrepreneur. It's just how you deal with it. And it's how you deal with it that makes all the difference. So if I'm now in a funk, but I have this coach that I want to work with. By the way, I always work with coaches. I spend a couple $1,000s a month on coaching. And so I had this coach I wanted to work with, but it took $2,000 a month, which can be one, unproportionate to anybody right now saying like, coach, $2,000 a month. Like, that's a lot of money. And I also said that to myself, I'm not any different from any of you all. And the second thing I said to myself, I don't have that right now, like as in my cash flow to invest. But I knew that if I invest this, then it will help me in the future. It will help me get what I want to get done and build an actual business that generates a lot more. So I said, okay, I'm going to take the risk. And I did it. So it's like how you treat the pressure and how you kind of deal with the understanding of business. What is investment? And it's also then going back to everybody who's having a day job. What is your investment in your fulfillment in life? What's your investment in the contribution that you have to society? are you going to let anything like time or, pressure of time hold you back? Well, no, you should just still go out and do what you want, um, and build it as a side project. And it's okay. Everybody here with a day job is just like, I envy you in in a sense, right? You have that stability. So yeah, but it's when you leave your day job at one point, it's just about understanding how to have the proper mindset and developing mental toughness. I had a friend, and when I was in a funk, I had, you have ups and downs in your business. When I had a big funk, like at the beginning of 2019, um, big financial hurdle, I came to a friend of mine. I told him my story, like just like, pouring my heart out, like expecting some kind of empathy. And he's like, on the other end, is like listening. And then he says, Sagi, this is great. I'm happy for you. Like, I'm like, what the man? What? Like, how can you say that? And now I get it. Like this is the end of 2019. Not so much time has passed, but now I get it. Now I'm saying that to myself when I have a funk. I'm like, great. I can learn from this challenge. So we all have to understand, like, the people that are not successful, anything you hear about like businesses shutting down and stuff like that, are the people that had a challenge or they had a big failure and they told themselves they quit. They couldn't do it anymore. Instead of looking at a challenge and saying, okay, I have something to learn from here. Now I'm getting back up on my feet and continuing with what I just learned. And this is an opportunity to actually improve. And so these challenges that come our way are just as actually a blessing. That's how I look at it now. So it's how you look at everything. It's not how, like, and goes back to having 24 hours in a day, right? Like we look at it differently. We look at it 24 hours in a day. Great, let's crush it. Let's make every minute count. A lot of people are just like, I don't know. I don't have power. I come back from work and I don't have power to now invest in so no problem. You don't have power to invest when you come back from work. Then how about the morning? Can you wake up an hour earlier? Maybe go to a coffee shop near your workplace and, where you're away from everybody and work on something for just an hour and then go to work? Or can you all these things are just like finding the right solution and learning from any challenge that comes across your way.
I think that's great. All of us, like you said, have 24 hours. Some just apply it differently. So, man, Sagi, you give us so much great information, so much great things to think about, because if we change our mindset, we can definitely change the rest of how everything else in our life. Now, let's jump into the rapid fire round. Now, the rapid fire round, we're going to ask you some questions. It should be very, very simple. Off the top of your head, you should be able to come up with them. So the first question is, if you were to go back and give yourself any advice that, from the very, very beginning, what piece of advice would you give yourself, 20 years ago?
20 years ago. 20 years ago, I would give myself advice to learn about compound interest. Compound interest is a thing that I just heard the first time in my life when I was 34 years old, 2 years ago. And I think that compound interest, I know you talk about it probably on the show, but when you invest in something and that something gives you an interest over a yearly period or over any kind of period, then you enjoy the interest. And if you have a lot of years with that compound interest, then any investment becomes freaking like treasure island. And that goes for money, but it also goes for knowledge. And it also goes for effort. So if you put in the effort right now, even if you have a day job, and any place, like nobody taught me about this. Like this is like the ABC of entrepreneurship, or like just put in the effort. Don't worry, it will pay off with interest. And once you put in the effort now, then a year from now, you're in a completely different spot in your life and in your career. So compound interest, I think, is one of the best things ever. And the second thing is mental toughness. It's a term I also heard in the first time in my life 2 years ago. I've been a martial artist my entire life, kind of. But in tournaments, when I was just competing in tournaments and fights and everything, when I was like in my 20s, I remember I was weak mentally. I was so strong. I was so good, like so much I was in shape. I was like kicking ass. But every time I just faced someone who's like just a bit like bigger than me and start kicking my ass, then I just tried to kind of like show him I'm hurt and kind of like expect his empathy and like not for him to hit me anymore. But he kept hitting harder. And that's what life does. right? When you're down, life doesn't say, oh, you poor thing, I'll just have some pity on you. No, it hits you harder. And that's why everybody in life around you, think about the people around you that always complain, that always have it hard. You think they have it better? No, they actually have it harder every time. And bad luck seems to find seems to find its way to them every single time. But the people that have good luck, actually, you see that good luck tends to find its way to them. It's not because anything but this concept of mental toughness and understanding that you only push yourself up, and it's hard work, and you do it every single day.
I love that. Awesome. Next question. What is one tool that you like to use in your life, business or life or anything like that? Could be an app, something that helps you that we can utilize as well.
I'm trying to think good about this one. Because I guess a lot of people, well, I'll just say like Audible, and my podcasting app. I think that Audible changed the way I see the world because it's my university of life. And without, like, I have all my coaches and it's great. And I have all my technology on my computer and I'm a tech geek. But when I just like have audiobooks in my ear, I can learn from the best of the best. The best minds in the world are out there just, sharing their knowledge. We're talking about like people who've done stuff in their life. And then a book is not like a podcast. Although I hear podcasts for different reasons. Podcasts are great for gems. And then the book is great for really deeply understanding something, because when someone writes a book, he has to really make every point proven. You have to prove each and every point. And you can't go around that. Like, people's bullshit radar is too high. So that's why I think books are just amazing. And I learned so much from so many books.
Audible.com. That's fantastic. So last question. What is one book that is a nonfiction book, could be in business or life, that you would recommend everybody to read?
So except Fish Out of Water, which I already recommended, I would recommend, and I'm thinking about it very well because, again, there are so many amazing books, but there is The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And this guy, you either love him or hate him, like as an entrepreneur, but I think that the 10X Rule is one of the best business books ever written. And in general, Grant Cardone's books are some of the best ever written, because he talks about so many important principles like massive action and why it's your obligation to be successful in life. Like, a lot of people are just like, I don't want to be successful. I just want to live my life. Like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, life is bigger than that. And when life gets hard, it's just way harder than your average life to take in. So therefore you have to be great. You have to be successful, because you have to prepare yourself for even life, less, happier moments. And it includes your family and your obligation to your surroundings and your society. You have to contribute to society like that. So anyways, I think it's just such a great book, 10X Rule. Sell or Be Sold, another book by Grant Cardone, which I love.
That's great. Cool. Well, Sagi, you've given us so many great principles, great things that we need to think about. How can somebody reach out to you if they want to connect with you, if they want to listen to the things that you have? How can somebody find you?
So first of all, thank you so much, man, for having me on the show, and really appreciate it. It was great talking to you. And everybody, great sharing this with you guys. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect via, first of all, my podcast. If you want the Creativepreneur podcast or the Creativepreneur show, search for the Creativepreneur show. It's also on the domain creativepreneur.show, and on Instagram and Facebook, mostly Instagram. I'm active on Sagi Shrieber, just SAGISH, and you'll find me, Sagi Shrieber.
Awesome. Sagi, you're fantastic. Thank you so much. And I mean, obviously connecting through, you're Israel. I'm in America, in California. So Sagi, it's great being a friend of yours as well. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, bro.
All right, man. Take care.